I'm going to steal their Christmas.
So mad for Halloween, come around and we ain't knocking at
The Grinch is a familiar story to us all. A story created, recreated, and adapted for years and years, appreciated by multiple generations of children. Although the story seems wholesome and joyous, Christmas is about the people rather than the things, heart over material, there is a dark side to the Grinch. Perhaps he is not just an old man with a bah humbug mentality, perhaps he is a criminal. If the Whos were a bit more litigious or prone to pressing charges, would the Grinch be guilty of theft? He did return everything after all. There's two main offenses the Grinch might have committed, burglary and theft. You might ask, what's the difference between robbery, burglary, and theft? The simple answer in non-legalese is, robbery is stealing something from someone by using force, burglary is breaking into a building and stealing something, and theft is just stealing something. Our primary concern here would be burglary, because most of the stuff the Grinch stole was inside of people's houses. Burglary is listed under Section 9, subsection 1A of the Theft Act. A person commits burglary if he enters a building or any part of a building as a trespasser, with the intent to either steal anything in the building or inflict grievous bodily harm on any person in the building. While the Grinch hasn't inflicted harm on anyone, he's definitely a burglar. Just because the Grinch returned everything he burgled doesn't mean he isn't guilty of burglary. The fact that he returned the stuff might matter later when it comes to sentencing, but it seems pretty clear that he is in fact guilty of this offense. However, he also stole things outside of the houses in the new Grinch movie. He stole several trees and lights in public spaces, so we should also look at theft. Theft is famously the bane of law students, with 5 elements that are incredibly annoying to analyze, but we'll just focus on the important bits. Theft is outlined under the Theft Act of 1968. A person is guilty of theft if he dishonestly appropriates property belonging to another with the intention of permanently depriving the other of it. We're going to focus on the intention to permanently deprive because it's obvious that the Grinch stole property and that it belonged to other people, the Whos. Some cases involving intention to permanently deprive have been joyriding cases, where a person takes a car out for a ride and then leaves it unharmed after using it. However, the main thing for us to focus on here is the principle of coincidence. Remember from our previous videos that for an offense to be fulfilled, one has to have a guilty mind at the same time they are committing the guilty act. The Grinch intended to steal Christmas at the time he stole the Whos' possessions, so he would be guilty of theft, despite changing his mind later. Now we're going to look at sentencing, since we've discovered that the Grinch is guilty of both theft and burglary. According to the guidelines for domestic burglary, the Grinch would have a high level of harm because his victims were home when he burgled them and because the items were of high value. Regardless of whether they were expensive, sentimental value can be considered high value, and nothing is more sentimental than Christmas. He'd also have a high level of culpability because he planned and organized the theft, rather than doing it in the spur of the moment, and because he came equipped for burglary with Mr. Bricklebaum's sleigh. The starting sentence for someone with high culpability and high harm or Category 1 offense is 3 years custody, but it can go up to 6 years or be as low as 2 years. The Grinch does have mitigating circumstances, though, primarily that he was a good character, showed remorse, particularly through reparation of his victim, and had no previous convictions that we were aware of. Also, he had taken steps to address his offending behavior. I'm going to guess the Grinch would get 2 years in prison. The guidelines for theft are similar, though the sentences are overall less serious. Maybe he gets 6 months or community service. I might add that all of this could potentially have been solved if the Grinch had just filed a complaint under the tort of nuisance against the Whos for making so much noise. This has been Fictional Crimes, which is a society sponsored by King's College London. I'm your host, Audrey Rupert, and we hope to see you next time.